My fiancé returned victorious from battle, but at his side was a female general who had been through life and death with him. At the victory banquet, the female general blocked toast after toast for him. The general was injured while saving me. He cannot drink. The emperor raised an eyebrow, looking between them. Injured where? If it is an injury that might affect the continuation of your line, then my cousin cannot be wed to you. As it happened, a dance had just concluded, and the musicians had ceased their playing. The entire hall fell silent. Like the rest of the court, I watched the pair seated next to me with great interest. The man was Lord Kalon, my fiancé, who had just returned to the capital after a great victory on the border. Tonight was his celebration. He was the man of the hour. The woman was named Alara. Kalon introduced her as his left-wing commander, a remarkable woman he met on the frontier, whose knowledge of the terrain was crucial to their victory. On one occasion, their army was ambushed and nearly annihilated. It was Alara who knew of a hidden waterway to safety and led the army's retreat. She herself was nearly killed, and Kalon had risked his own life to save her, suffering grievous wounds in the process. The bond between them was one forged in shared mortality. I could see it clearly. Their connection was indeed profound. Kalon's expression instantly soured. Alara bit her lip, anxious to explain on his behalf. No, the general's injury is not to his foundation. Kalon frowned. Alara, that is enough. He held his wine cup, raising it respectfully. Your Majesty, your servant is humbled. I saw no humility in him. But Alara, he called her by her first name. How intimate. I clicked my tongue. This man was soiled, unacceptable. My eyes met the Emperor's, and he immediately understood my thoughts. But this was, after all, Kalon's victory banquet. It wouldn't do to completely humiliate him. The matter should have ended there. But Alara, having been scolded by Kalon, had tears welling in her eyes. Her voice was low. I was only trying to explain for the general. It is my fault. But general, you truly cannot drink. The physician warned you repeatedly. Her words ended on a sob. The emperor, seated on his dragon throne, had already raised his cup. Hearing this, he set it down again, the movement a little too forceful, spilling some of the wine. Kalon's eyes widened in terror. Alara, kneel and beg for forgiveness. Only then did Alara seem to realize her transgression. She scrambled to her knees and kowtowed. Mercy, your Majesty, mercy. It is my fault. I glanced at the Emperor. He was thoroughly unimpressed and looked ready to deal with this manipulative woman himself. It was my cue. Commander, since you admit your fault, do you know what you did wrong? Alara stared at me, dumbfounded, her mouth open but unable to form words. She had no idea what she had done wrong. The atmosphere grew tense. Alara knelt helplessly, not daring to move without the Emperor's command. Kalon, unable to watch any longer, spoke up. Serafina, don't make things difficult for Alara. She is from the frontier and doesn't understand the etiquette of the court. Lord Kalon, she may not understand, but do you? The Emperor's voice was laced with anger. At this, Kalon finally came to his senses. He had spoken rashly. My cousin, the Emperor, was right there. How dare he? I misspoke. Sweat beaded on Kalon's brow. Seeing the Emperor remain silent, he hastily rose from his seat and knelt beside Alara. Only then did the Emperor seem satisfied. Lady Serafina, please continue. That left me with no choice but to stand before them. 2 kneeling, 1 standing. I looked down on the pair. How distasteful. You have made 2 errors. First, at a victory banquet, you repeatedly blocked the general's drinks, making a spectacle of yourself and upstaging the very man you were supposedly protecting. I slowly raised a second finger. Second, you spoke when the Emperor had not addressed you, a grave breach of court etiquette. Since you hold a military rank, you are a subject of the Emperor. When you err, you must be punished according to the law. The color drained from Alara's face. Her lips trembled, and she was speechless. The emperor grunted. Then according to my cousin, how should this commander be punished? Colin looked up at me, pleading in a low voice. Lady, Seraphina, Alara was wrong, but her contributions to this war were immense. She is beloved by the troops. If she is punished, I fear. Was he threatening me? I bent down, bringing my ear close to his. What did you say? Speak up. The emperor and I can't hear you. Cullen's expression was ugly, as if he had suffered a great humiliation. Seeing this, Alara suddenly stopped crying and prostrated herself on the floor. If her ladyship wishes to punish me, I will accept it. General, say no more. The emperor slammed his hand on the throne's armrest. It is not her ladyship who wishes to punish you. It is I. Lord Kalen, was it your idea for your commander to repeatedly muddy the waters tonight? Kalen flinched, his face changing dramatically. His earlier arrogance towards me was gone. The large, imposing man, clad in armor, trembled like a leaf. The clinking of his armor plates was a source of ridicule for all to hear. He was still my fiancé. After all, the engagement had not yet been broken. I had to do some damage control for him. Your Majesty, General Kalan is fiercely loyal. He would never have such intentions. Kalan nodded frantically beside me. This was all Commander Alara's doing and has nothing to do with the general. Is that correct? I looked at Kalan. He frowned, his eyes meeting mine with resentment. What kind of person was he? I was clearly defending him, and he was still unhappy. Correct. Kalan forced the word through his teeth. Alara remained prostrate, her head on her hands, craning her neck to stare at Kalan with a wounded expression. Kalan lowered his head, avoiding her gaze. He gave a cold smile. Let the punishment be 20 strokes of the court cane. A light punishment to serve as a lesson. At the number 20, Alara's head shot up. She looked at me in disbelief. 20. Only those who commit major offenses in the army receive 20 strokes, your ladyship. She didn't dare continue because the emperor grunted again. I added, it is 20 strokes of the court cane, which is much lighter than the military one. Even palace maids who err can withstand it. A commander who has fought in battle is surely strong enough to endure it. Before they could respond, the emperor gave his assent. With a wave of his hand, he declared, as her ladyship says, take her away. Ilara's eyes, brimming with tears, stared at me with a mixture of resentment and hatred. The imperial guards flanked her. Seeing that Kalan dared not utter another word, she was led resentfully from the hall. Kylan watched her being dragged away, his face etched with worry. Close the doors to the hall. Do not disturb His Majesty and the general. The celebration must continue. With that, I returned to my seat. The emperor raised a hand. All right, General Kylan, you may rise. This is your victory banquet. It wouldn't be right for you to kneel through it. Given permission, Kalan flicked his hem and sat back down. The feast resumed. A new troupe of dancers entered, as if nothing had happened. I was seated near Kalan. The music was loud enough to cover his deliberately low voice. Seraphina, you were too cruel today. Using your status to bully others has deeply disappointed me. You are my fiancée, and I do not wish for a wife who throws her weight around. I choked on my wine. His mind didn't seem to be working properly. I replied sarcastically. Then why don't you marry your dear Alara? Kalan was taken aback. How could I? She is my commander. I see her only as a sister. After saying that, the way Kalan looked at me changed. A moment later, he gave a self-deprecating smile. I see now why you were so unreasonable today. You were jealous, Seraphina. I couldn't listen anymore. It was nauseating. Just then, the dance ended. I raised my voice. General Kalan, you still haven't answered the Emperor's question. Kalan looked blank. Where were you injured? Did it damage your lineage? Kalan's face went from red to white. He shot to his feet, his armor clattering. Of course not, he said, utterly humiliated. My injury is on my back. Her ladyship can call for the imperial physician to verify it. I looked to the emperor, my eyes asking, should we? The emperor gave a slight shake of his head. It made sense. Kalen was a general who commanded many men. He had just won a great victory, and his prestige was high. It was a celebration. Best not to make things too ugly. A eunuch rushed in, his voice sharp. "Your Majesty, Commander Alara fainted after receiving the 20 strokes." Kalen froze on the spot, his anxiety palpable. "How is she?" "Summon the imperial physician at once." Then, he glanced timidly at the emperor. The emperor grunted, giving his tacit approval. Kalan breathed a sigh of relief. For the rest of the banquet, he was completely distracted. When the feast ended, the emperor asked me to stay behind. Kalan hastily excused himself and practically flew out of the hall, with only the two of us left. We dropped our formal pretenses. I held a half-eaten chicken leg from the banquet and sat impatiently on the edge of the dragon throne. Brother, I will absolutely not marry him. Our fathers were full brothers. I had grown up in the palace with our grandmother, and though I was a lady, I was treated like a princess. It was no exaggeration to say I was the pearl of the palace. The emperor also slumped in his dragon chair, exhausted from a day of formalities. Guess who this Alara really is? The chicken leg got stuck in my throat. A chance encounter on the frontier, intimate knowledge of the roots, a delicate woman who nonetheless achieved great military feats. It was all too coincidental. Don't tell me she is an enemy spy, the emperor mused. If even you can guess it, it is impossible that Kalen, a veteran of countless campaigns, couldn't see it was a honey trap. But if he was playing along, why didn't he report it to me? Was he planning to resolve it himself and present me with the outcome? The emperor tapped his fingers on the table, and my heart pounded like a drum. He had aroused the emperor's suspicion. This was not good for Kalen. After all, there is a world of difference between adultery and treason. Seraphina, go and test him again. The moon was high and the wind was dark. The palace gate guards told me Kalen had not yet left. Alara, having been caned, was unfit to be moved, so she had been given quarters within the palace to recover. Her residence was not far from mine. I deliberately approached and heard Alara's coquettish moans from inside. "It hurts, General. It really hurts." Kalen was there, just as I expected. I waved for my attendants to stop and entered alone. The door was ajar. I could vaguely see Kalen inside, applying medicine for Alara. Half of Alara's back was exposed, covered in angry red welts. It seemed the executioners had not been gentle. A plan of my brother's, no doubt, I thought with a small smile. "Who is there?" Kalen turned around sharply. Alara quickly pulled up her clothes. I pushed the door open and entered with a cold laugh. So late at night, and General Kalen is still in the palace. An unmarried man and woman, alone, in a state of undress. What are you doing? Alara frowned and lowered her head. Her cheeks flushed scarlet. The general is helping me apply medicine. Your ladyship need not make it sound so sordid. There are proprieties between men and women. Is there a lack of palace maids here? I questioned them sharply. Both were stunned. Kalen was impatient. Seraphina, stop being so aggressive. Alara, however, shuffled back, her gaze innocent. But in the army, we all help each other with wounds like this. I froze, looking at them with an expression of utter disbelief, as if I had heard something profoundly disgusting. Seraphina, let me explain. Kalen pushed Alara away. I took a few steps back, then turned and ran. Seraphina. He called after me, and in a few steps, had followed me to my own palace. I stopped and faced him directly. Explain. Explain well. And you might save your life. Faced with my sudden composure, Kalen was momentarily stunned, unsure of how to begin. Well, conditions in the army are harsh. We all treat each other's wounds. Besides, after fighting side by side on the battlefield, in my eyes, she is no different from any other soldier. We are comrades in arms. A poor explanation. I shook my head. At the banquet you called her a sister, and now she is a comrade. Tell me, have your other male comrades applied medicine for her like this? Kalen grew agitated, hissing. Don't speak such nonsense and ruin Alara's reputation. Seeing him like this, my heart sank. Kaelin, you haven't fallen for her, have you? Absolutely not, Kaelin retorted instantly, as if I had stepped on his tail. I am engaged to you. I am the future royal consort of this kingdom. How could I do such a thing, Seraphina? My heart belongs only to you. He was clearly flustered, already spouting nonsense. Seeing me silent, Kaelin panicked and continued his rambling confession. Seraphina, we've known each other since childhood. Why don't you believe me? I just see that Alara is alone and helpless, so I take extra care of her. I tested him again. How is she alone and helpless? Isn't she a remarkable woman of the frontier? Is there something more to her identity? No, Kaelin said firmly. I just feel it is not easy for a lone woman to serve in the army. Besides, all the soldiers are under my command. As their general, it is my duty to look after them. His defense was weak. A palace maid ran in, looking rushed. Your ladyship, General, it is not good. Commander Alara has a high fever and is delirious. Kaelin's eyes contracted. He was about to rush over. I grabbed his sleeve. There are physicians in the palace. You haven't finished explaining things to me. Seraphina, stop being unreasonable, he snapped, the worry on his face impossible to hide. He turned back to me, frowning. Everything that happened to Alara today is because of you. As your fiancé, it is my duty to take care of her on your behalf. I pointed a finger at myself. Me. If it weren't for your jealousy and suspicion of Alara, she wouldn't have committed a breach of etiquette in the hall. Seraphina know when to stop. She has earned military honors. She is not like you, a sheltered woman of the court. After saying this, Kaelin rushed out of my palace. I stood there for a moment, my mouth agape. Then I raised my hand and summoned a young eunuch. The palace gates are locked. Why is there a man from outside still roaming the palace? Call the Imperial Guard and have him thrown out. The night wind was cold. I stood at a distance, able to see the movements in the side pavilion, though the sounds were clear. The Imperial Guard commander, Valerius, kicked open the door. General Kaelin, you have violated palace regulations by remaining here so late. Please depart immediately. Kaelin, who was wiping the limbs of the feverish Alara, was startled by the commotion and quickly shielded her. Commander Valerius, what is the meaning of this? Commander Alara is injured. The Emperor himself permitted her to recover in the palace. Valerius waved his hand and two of his men stepped forward. The atmosphere was instantly charged with tension. He permitted her, not you. The palace rules are strict. Do not make my job difficult. General, leave now. Valerius's voice was as hard as iron, leaving no room for negotiation. The guards behind him took a step forward, their hands on the hilts of their swords. Kaelin's face was livid, his anger barely contained. I am Lady Seraphina's fiancé. It is not unreasonable for me to stay one night. Call her ladyship here. I will speak with her. Valerius couldn't be bothered to argue, but at the mention of my name, he raised an eyebrow. This is by her ladyship's order. Alara, weak with fever, leaned against Kaelin. General, why must her ladyship make things so difficult for me? Kaelin glanced at Alara and ground his teeth, squeezing out my name, Seraphina. Commander, Alara has a fever. If she is moved now and something happens, can you bear the responsibility? She may stay. There are palace maids to attend to her. The general can rest assured. Valerius said this with a blank expression, making a pleased gesture towards Kaelin. Kaelin suddenly looked horrified. No, she cannot stay in the palace. Alara comes with me. He pulled Alara, but as soon as her feet touched the ground, she fainted. The palace attendants in the pavilion rushed to support her. Valerius was losing patience. General Kaelin, stop looking for trouble. His men moved in, pinning Kaelin by the shoulders and forcibly escorting him out. As they passed me, Kaelin was still shouting, Seraphina! You can't leave Alara alone in the palace, Seraphina! I ignored him. The commotion had been so great that my brother the emperor sent someone to inquire. My reply, "The fish has taken the bait." I heard Kaelin was practically dragged out of the palace. It was now the third watch of the night, and he was still pacing anxiously at the palace gate, repeatedly sending messages through the guards, begging to see me. Look at this man, asking a lady to meet him in the middle of the night, with no regard for my reputation, I said indignantly. I was with Valerius. We were staked out near the emperor's bedchambers. Hearing my words, Valerius unconsciously took 2 steps away. I moved closer to him again and whispered, "Do you want to be a royal consort?" Ahem. He quickly covered his mouth, but his ears had turned crimson. This humble servant would not dare presume. I sighed internally. How boring. My brother had said that after my engagement with Kalan was dissolved, I could choose my own fiancé, but it would just be another son from some noble family. All of them were boring. I was just joking. You don't have to take it seriously. Shh. Valerius placed a finger on my lips. Simone's coming. I clutched his arm, not daring to breathe too loudly. From the dark shadows of the palace walls, a figure stealthily approached the bedchambers. The person was skilled, their movements light and swift. A dark shape leaped onto the roof, then curled into a ball, as nimble as one of the many stray cats in the palace. Unfortunately for her, the roof was already full of our men. We had laid a trap just waiting for her to jump in. After a brief struggle, 4 or 5 men leaped down from the roof carrying a sack and nodded in our direction. Valerius said in a low voice, "Her ladyship's foresight is truly remarkable." I released my grip on his arm and smoothed my dress. It is not my foresight. It is my brother's meticulous planning. Let's go. Let's see what this remarkable woman, for whom Kaelin is so concerned, was planning to do. The side pavilion was brightly lit. Alara was bound and thrown on the floor. A cloth was stuffed in her mouth, and she kept making muffled sounds. Your ladyship, this was found on her. I glanced at the object in the guard's hand and frowned. What is this? Reporting to your ladyship, the physician has already examined it. It is a potent sleeping drug. She was about to remove a roof tile and blow it into the emperor's chambers. I let out a long, "Oh," drug everyone inside, then jump down and assassinate my brother. Alara thrashed on the floor like a landed fish. I waved my hand, dismissing the guards. Go and report to the emperor. Let the 3 judicial offices begin the interrogation tonight. I have some private questions for her first. Valerius looked worried. No, what if this traitor harms your ladyship? I tapped my finger on his chest. Then you can stay and protect me. Valerius's face grew redder under the lantern light. He tightened his grip on his sword and replied steadily, "Yes, your ladyship." He took his place by my side, his sharp gaze fixed on Alara. The attendants filed out, leaving the 3 of us alone. I walked over to Alara and knelt, meeting her resentful, unwilling eyes. I reached out and pulled an inconspicuous wooden hairpin from her hair. An orphan girl from the harsh borderlands, familiar with the terrain, a strong swimmer, skilled in combat, and able to make a man as arrogant as Kaelin defend her at every turn. This is the work of a well-trained operative. The hairpin traced a light red mark across her cheek. Instantly, that side of her face swelled up. "Poison," I said, tossing the hairpin away like a hot potato. "This is your weapon, isn't it? Capable of killing in one blow, and if your mission failed, you could use it on yourself." A pity the Imperial Guard's hands were faster. Alara's face was corroding, black blood oozing from the wound. It was a ghastly sight. She rolled on the ground in pain, guttural sounds coming from her throat. Oh, I had forgotten she was still gagged. I have only one question for you. Do you think Kalan's feelings for you were part of his own plan, or did he genuinely fall for you? After the gag was removed, Alara immediately tried to bite her tongue. Valerius, quick as lightning, lunged forward and clamped her jaw shut. Behave yourself. Don't even think about dying. I rolled up my sleeves and slapped her hard twice on the uninjured side of her face. You should know. The 3 judicial offices have hundreds of methods of torture, that will make you wish for death. If you tell me the truth now, I can ensure they give you a quick end." Alara gasped for breath, her chest heaving. I leaned in again, whispering in her ear, "I am not asking you to betray your master. You were using a honey trap. I just want to hear about your results. Tell me, how far did you two go?" With that, I sat on the bed, looking down at her with an expectant expression. As if I were a commoner listening to a storyteller, Alara stared at me, then took a deep breath. After a long pause, she said, "I played with your fiancé like a dog. Naturally, we did everything. He said he would marry me and take responsibility for me." I crossed my legs, my curiosity piqued. "But he is the future royal consort with a boundless future. When you seduced him, did he not resist at all?" Alara gave a cold sneer, looking at me with pity. He was hooked immediately," I murmured. "Why, though, you are not exactly a celestial beauty." Looking at her face, now swollen like a pig's head, I was genuinely baffled. Was he playing along, luring you in? "Do you think he knew you were a spy for the Northern Horde?" Alara froze, her mouth half open, unable to answer. I continued. "He is a general who has studied strategy since childhood. You think he couldn't see through such a simple ploy?" I ignored her increasingly twisted expression and went on. "Let me ask you this. At the banquet today, Kalen didn't have to bring you into the palace at all. Why did he? A great victory, and a spy from the Northern Horde would have been a fine betrothal gift for my brother." I smiled. "Look at you. He slept with you all this time for free. Today at the banquet, you were utterly humiliated, and now you can't even save your own life. TSK. Which organization from the North do you belong to? How could you ever trust a man?" Alara let out a scream, her one good eye glaring at me venomously. Unable to speak a word. I had broken her. Men from the 3 judicial offices arrived. I glanced outside. "I've finished asking about General Kylin. I will report to the Emperor myself. I leave the rest to you, my lords." Leaving the pavilion, my expression turned cold. Even if it was just a verbal victory, I had to have it. These two, I would make sure they died without understanding a thing. Valerius followed behind me in silence. The sky was beginning to lighten. It was almost time for the morning court session. After a long night, I hurried to report to the Emperor. When my brother heard that Kylin had waited at the palace gate all night, he gave a cold snort. "General Kylin has returned from a long campaign. He must be exhausted. Let him return to his estate to rest. He need not attend court." His tone was glacial. Then he looked at me deeply. "Serafina, go to his estate today and check on him." I understood my brother's meaning instantly. He wanted Kaylan to disappear. On the way back to my palace, I was utterly exhausted. I stumbled, and Valerius stepped forward to steady me. Finally, he couldn't help but ask, "Your ladyship, why did you absolve General Kaylan and even credit him? He clearly had no intention of reporting the spy." I rested my hand on his arm as we walked slowly. "The Emperor knows the truth. This story is for everyone else." I sighed. After all, Kaylan and I are engaged. If it got out that he lost his senses over a woman and brought an enemy spy into the palace, I would become a laughingstock. This engagement was arranged by our grandfather when he was alive. We must protect the honor of the imperial family. Both appearance and reality mattered. This block of wood beside me wouldn't understand, but I had plenty of time to teach him. "You should go back and rest. Accompany me to the Kalen estate this afternoon." Valerius nodded and withdrew. The morning sun cast a golden glow. I stood in the Department of Punishments, my fingers tracing over the instruments. A dagger, a white silk cord, a cup of poisoned wine. I decided to take them all, strangle him with the silk, force the poison down his throat, and then stab him a few times for good measure. Even that would not be enough to vent my anger. That afternoon, Valerius and I arrived at the Kalen estate. The Imperial Guard had already secured every exit. Kalen had clearly not slept. His eyes were bruised, and his clothes were damp with night dew. When he saw me, A flicker of pleasant surprise crossed his face, quickly replaced by anxiety. Serafina, what happened in the palace? How is Alara? Why did the Emperor send me home and surround my estate with guards? General Kalon! I raised my hand to cut him off, my voice calm and even. Alara attempted to assassinate the Emperor. She has been thrown into the celestial prison. Kalon's face changed drastically. He staggered back a step. Assassinate the Emperor, but she was sick. No, it can't be. I found a chair and sat down. Valerius stood silently by my side, his hand never leaving the hilt of his sword. Do you know who she is? Faced with my question, Kalon forced himself to remain calm. She is just an orphan I met on the frontier, who, as Kalon listened, his lips turned white and his eyes darted around. How is that possible? Impossible. Alara can't be a spy. Watching his clumsy performance, I let out a laugh. You and I have known each other since childhood. I watched you grow up reading books on strategy. Why start acting now? Acting what? His continued denial was ridiculous. I shook my head, feigning pity. When Alara was captured last night, she tried her best to distance herself from you. She said it was all her plan, that you knew nothing, and she hoped you wouldn't be implicated. Kylan, who had been holding himself together, crumpled at my words. His lips trembled, his eyes filled with disbelief. What did you say, Alara? Look at him. And he claimed he had no real feelings for her. It was disgusting to watch. Kalon gripped the edge of the table, his body trembling uncontrollably. I am loyal to the Emperor. Serafina, I truly knew nothing. I just thought she was different. The words were squeezed from his teeth. He was clearly in agony. Taxke, poor him. Different, so you fell in love with her, is that it? I stated the conclusion for him, my voice as cold as ice. And even though you knew something was wrong with her, you held on to a sliver of hope, thinking you could control her, or that your deep feelings for each other would prevail. Kalon wanted to argue, but my words had hit their mark. He was speechless. This man was an absolute fool. Seduced by beauty, clinging to foolish hope, placing his personal feelings above the safety of the nation. He probably even enjoyed the dangerous thrill of it all. I turned my face to the window, signaling for the poison and silk cord to be brought in. When he saw the tray in the guard's hands, Kalon's eyes widened. He fell to his knees before me with a thud. Serafina, I know I was wrong. I beg you, ask the Emperor to forgive me. I truly know I was wrong. He clutched at the hem of my dress, but Valerius shoved him away. We've been engaged since we were children. You can't just watch me die. My eyes were empty. I couldn't be bothered to say another word to him. You brought this on yourself. What can I do? Everyone inside and outside this room just heard you admit you fell in love with an enemy spy. Kalon grew terrified, banging his head on the floor. Serafina, listen to me. It was a moment of weakness. I never thought of betraying our kingdom, and I would never betray you. Kalon crawled forward, trying to grab my dress again, but Valerius blocked him with his scabbard. Insolence! Valerius's voice was like steel. A moment of weakness. I laughed lightly. If she had succeeded last night, the cavalry of the Northern Horde would likely be storming our borders right now. How is what you did any different from treason? I stood up and turned my back to him. You knew Alara's identity was suspect, yet you fell into her trap. General Kalan, did you know that your recent victories on the border were all part of a trap set for you? The conversation was over. It was time for him to go. I said to Valerius, give him a quick end. No. Kalan suddenly lunged, shoving Valerius aside and throwing himself at me. I was caught off guard, and he grabbed my arm. Serafina, save me this once, and I promise I will be a good consort to you and serve the Emperor faithfully. He pleaded desperately. His words tumbling out, Valerius drew his sword, the tip aimed at Kalon's back. Release her ladyship. But Kalon, as if possessed, switched his grip and wrapped his hand around my neck. The situation was explosive. He held me, slowly backing out of the room. Let me go, or we die together. Kalen's grip tightened. I couldn't breathe. Valerius was incredibly tense, the veins on his sword hand bulging, but he dared not make a move. Kalen, you are insane. I managed to gasp. You forced me to do this. His eyes were bloodshot as he dragged me towards the courtyard. All I did was fall in love with someone. What crime is that? The Imperial Guards surrounded them, their blades glinting in the sun. No one dared to move. Kylan's arm tightened further. I was about to suffocate. Let me out of the city. Get me a fast horse. He roared at Valerius. Or I'll snap her neck right now. Valerius's face was ashen, but he had no choice but to raise his hand and signal his men to back away. At that critical moment, an arrow flew through the air, piercing clean through the arm Kalen had around my neck. He cried out in pain and released me. I seized the opportunity to break free, stumbling into the arms of Valerius, who rushed forward to catch me. Take him! Valerius commanded. The Imperial Guard swarmed, pinning the wounded Kylan to the ground. Still shaken, I looked up and saw that the courtyard walls were also lined with archers. Seraphina? Kalen, pinned to the ground, still looked at me with defiance. Why, won't you let me go? I smoothed my clothes and walked over, kneeling beside him. I whispered in his ear, I lied to you. Alara said she was using you from the very beginning. That playing you was like playing with a dog. And just like her, I was luring a general into my trap. Kalen stared at me blankly, then let out a mournful cry. The last spark of light in his eyes died. I stood up and nodded to Valerius. A flash of a blade, a spray of blood. The brilliant young general died in his own home. I tossed Alara's wooden hairpin next to his body and left the token of the northern horde that had been prepared. According to my brother's plan, Kalen was killed by assassins from the north, and our kingdom, naturally, would have to seek justice for its decorated general. Leaving the Kalen estate, the sunlight was harsh. I raised a hand to shield my eyes. Valerius walked silently in front of me, blocking the sun for me. Your ladyship, my condolences. I paused, then laughed. What is there to mourn? He lowered his head. I misspoke. Indeed, mi fiancé was dead, but a spy from the north had been eliminated, and my brother had an excuse to attack them again. All in all, a good bargain. It was only sometimes that I would remember our childhood. The boy who said he would become a great general to protect me. The boy who rode horses with me. In the end, he died in a gentle trap on the frontier. Valerius, I am here. Kalen is dead. The kingdom needs a general. I turned to look at him, suddenly remembering that night under the palace walls, when I asked if he wanted to be my consort, and his ears turned crimson. Would you? I raised an eyebrow. There was a fire of ambition in Valerius's eyes. I knew he was more than capable. I just needed to recommend him to my brother. I would not dare, he said, lowering his head humbly. I teased. You have to. After all, I only marry generals. Valerius's head shot up, a flash of panic in his eyes. I laughed, my mood suddenly much lighter. I am teasing you. I turned and walked towards the palace, the hem of my dress sweeping across the stone path with a soft rustle. Let's go. My brother must be getting impatient. I only marry generals, a category that was by no means limited to him. We would see how he recommended himself in this next battle, and whether he would be loyal to me. There were plenty of good men in this kingdom. If this one didn't work out, I would just find another.